the nerdy neighborhood, everyone, and welcome back to your friendly neighborhood comic show. I'm your host, Lauren, your friendly neighborhood bi, and joining me today is indie comic creator and Kickstarter guru, essentially, because I'm on his list. I get all of them. He's always running and giving us great stuff. Caleb Palmquist is here joining us today. How are you, Caleb?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry you're joining me so early today. I hope it's not too early for your time zone.
Well, it's 7 a.m., but that's all right.
Oh, that West Coast time, gosh. I feel like the West Coast and East Coast debate, it was only ever about the time zone difference. Well, I'm super excited to have you on again. I'm a huge fan myself. Vampire Detective in Space is my current favorite work of yours. But you've got some other really great stuff out right now. You've got 2 Kickstarters going. One is for a project that you've been kind of, putting their heart into it for a long time now, Unicorn Vampire Hunter. But you've also got this really cool new one that I really wanted to hit on a lot because it's brand new. It's its own thing. It's got the very 80s kind of vibe. It's very silly. Space Monkey Knights Go, which... was that supposed to be like kind of a shout out to like the name Teen Titans Go or something?
Well, there's been several different cartoons that have the go at the end of it, yeah, and that it's definitely meant to be it's sort of like our love letter or homage to like Saturday morning cartoons, and that certainly includes Teen Titans Go, and then other things like Powerpuff Girls, and of course, going all the way back to the 80s with things like Thundercats and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Voltron.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I know we have a lot of TMNT fans that watch the channel here, especially. And Voltron. I think it's so cool how Voltron's gotten so much bigger again with the new show, even though we don't talk about the ending, apparently. We don't talk about the last season of the new show.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm a huge Voltron fan, and so I think that the visual designs of this comic are especially a little bit inspired by Voltron.
Yeah, I mean, this right here, this little, you got the color separation like that. That is complete. That is such a love letter to Voltron, I feel like.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So this is Space Monkey Knights Go is about 4 monkeys who get sent off into space on a rocket ship to explore the far reaches of the galaxy, and they're supposed to be in cryosleep learning all the collected knowledge of mankind, but instead, through a fluke, they only get the information about King Arthur's knights, and so they wake up on a faraway planet. They crash land and they believe themselves to be Knights of the Round Table, and so then they, with the help of some aliens, they become defenders of the galaxy. And it's an idea that Dave Lentz came to me with. Dave Lentz is the guy who letters all of my comics. I mean, if you've been following me, you know that he lettered Vampire Detective in Space and Unicorn Vampire Hunter and a lot of other stuff that I've done. And so it was his idea, and he came to me and he said, "Will you write this?" And I was like, "Of course." So it took us a while to get it going, but I'm a huge fan of this book. I think it's super, super fun.
Yeah, Dave Lentz, anytime, that's one thing I love about a lot of your work, Caleb, is because you collaborate with him so much. It's such a great collaboration that doesn't, I as a reader and a fan have never gotten like bored of or tired of and been like, okay, do something different, because you both come up with such crazy and new ideas, it seems so often, that like, there's nothing to get bored of, ever. All your projects have the same amount of love and passion to them, but they're also different and whimsical in their own right. So I think you and Dave working together is like the perfect partnership. And I hope it continues for a very, very long time.
Oh, I'm sure that it will continue. Dave is definitely, I think, of all of the, I mean, I've made so many great friendships doing comics, and had a chance to work with a lot of really awesome collaborators. and but there's really no one like Dave. Like Dave is the best at what he does, and he does a lot of work, but he always, he's very loyal too. So, and not just to me. I don't get him all to myself, unfortunately, but there's plenty of other people who really rely on Dave, and he's really uplifting indie comics. So,
yeah, absolutely. With these characters here, I'd love to just hear a little bit about each one that you can, share without too many spoilers. Because on the left here, we got Sir Kay, the baboon, and then we got Sir Percy, the capuchin, Sir Galahad, the chimpanzee, and Sir Gareth, the Emperor Tamarin. So how'd you come up with these characters? And then also, I don't know if it's okay to ask. I don't know if I'm saying something wrong here, but how'd you pick which animal they would be?
Oh, sure. No, yeah, no. I'll answer all your questions. There's really nothing that I could say that would be too much of a spoiler territory on this. So when Dave came to me with the idea, it was already called Space Monkey Nights Go. Mm-hmm. So in terms of why monkeys, you'd have to ask Dave that, because once I came on, that was already set in stone. But basically it was okay. I think the real core of it is we've got the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And so this is largely a riff on that, right? So where instead of turtles, they're monkeys. Instead of ninjas, they're knights. And so of course there's some other influences in there, but when you're talking about each of the knights, we came up with the ideas and which monkeys they would be based on archetypes of not only Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but a lot of cartoons have these archetypes of characters. You've got the tough one, you've got the leader, you've got the smart one, and you've got the crazy one. And so Sir Kay is the tough one. He's a baboon. And so we knew that we wanted to have, so the names, so I'm a huge King Arthur fan. Since you follow my newsletter, you know that I write a whole other King Arthur comic. And Sir Kay is if you've read the original, some of the original stories featuring Sir Kay, from the 13th century or whatever, or earlier than that, Sir Kay is a jerk. He's a hot-headed jerk. And so I thought that was the perfect one. And then I was like, what monkey is just so violent? And baboons are really crazy violent. So that was that one. And then Sir Percy, the capuchin. So Sir Percy, Percival in Arthurian comics is the first knight to seek the Holy Grail. And so I always imagine him as a real dork. And I don't know why. That's not really true in the original stories. He's not a nerd, but I think that he's later overshadowed by Galahad, who does find the Holy Grail. And so anyway, I thought we need a tech guy, a nerd guy, and so we're gonna put Capuchin, who is Capuchins are very inventive, creative, with tools and things. So, so I'm let's slap some glasses on him and make him say actually," and there we go. And then Sir Galahad is my favorite. I love them all, but Sir Galahad is a chimpanzee. Now you'll note that a chimpanzee is not a monkey, right? Which is a part of the, well, maybe part of the plot is a stretch, but it's definitely a joke that we harp on in the book, that he is not a monkey at all. And he's actually a great ape. But yeah, so and he's the leader, and then Sir Gareth is the Emperor Tamarin. He's the crazy one. He's just kind of along for the ride, and that's why he's got. There's a in the comic, you see him without the mask on, but we were like, wouldn't it be hilarious if he had a Daft Punk style mask that showed his emotions with a robot face? And so yeah, that's kind of how we came up with the characters. And you'll notice in this particular piece of art, they're all wearing these like Voltron style suits, and they, in the preview pages, they don't have those yet, but they'll get them in this issue. So you'll see, we wanted to do sort of like, so with Saturday morning cartoons, a lot of times like you don't really get to know the origin. You just kind of like in the opening theme song, they like briefly tell you like why, you know, like, oh, the Powerpuff Girls, like they got the chemical X and that's why. And so we wanted to pay homage to that, but also not like kind of bridge the gap between like some more complete storytelling and like paying homage to that. So this first issue is the Space Monkey Knight's origin. And I would say the biggest key to that, like paying homage to that silly origin story style, is that the reason that they're knights is because when they were sleeping, they got all the knowledge about King Arthur's knights, and just that, because the robot that was supposed to be like making sure they got all the right knowledge in their heads was like got obsessed with King Arthur's knights. He just kept watching that stuff on repeat, and that's like all that they know. So that's the fifth character, is Al, the artificial linguistics robot, I think is what it's short for. And so he's like totally hapless, and he's like the translator droid, and so like he like in the story he's able to like translate for the monkeys so they can speak to aliens, but also he's just like super excited about their adventures. He's like a big fanboy the whole time. And we named that character after Alan Dunford, who's another friend and collaborator of Dave Lentz. He does comics like Horus and Hell and Pocus Hocus, and I run a podcast with him, and so we named the little robot after him. But yeah. Oh, and there you can see the Emperor Tamarin there, Sir Gareth without a mask on, which is very funny. When we chose Emperor Tamarin, like, they look like old men. They've got these little mustaches,
right?
And but yeah. Anyway.
I think too, like, so the concept and the characters, like, our big seller this book. What really nailed it for me is the art. Like, your artist on this book really captured exactly what it sounds like you and Dave wanted, which is that Saturday morning cartoon. I feel like I'm waking up on a Saturday morning watching a cartoon and not having to worry about anything else in my life.
Oh yeah, for sure. And so the artist is Nicholas Torres. He is really awesome. I've worked with Nick, like going back on one of my very first comics. I worked with Nick, and he's worked with Dave a lot. They've done some work at Source Point Press together, and then I'm just a big fan of Nick Torres. Every year since I've been with my wife, when we first started dating, every year on Valentine's Day, I like have an artist do a portrait of her as a D&D character, as a D&D cleric with like a pet dragon. And Nick was the very first artist I asked to do that. And yeah, so those are like hanging on her office wall. She's got several now by different artists, but Nick was the first one. And so it was like super fun. He's been I've always been wanting to collaborate with him again, but I was looking for the right project, and this was absolutely it.
Yeah, absolutely. And here we've got the violent baboon, as you were talking about earlier.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
The pacing of this series, just even from the preview, I feel like the pacing of this issue at least, but I do definitely want to, have high hopes for the whole series as well, because I know how you are as a writer. You're fantastic. All your collaborators are great. The pacing, it seems so great. It flows just like a Saturday morning cartoon. You're not having to think too hard about okay, but where are they going with this or what have you? You just get to sit and enjoy it and keep turning the page. And that's, I mean, I'm scrolling here, but I'm imagining my physical copy when it comes in.
Well, when I think about storytelling all the time, and it's funny that you, at the start of this interview, you called me a guru, and that's very funny. It's very flattering that you would say that. I really don't think of myself that way. But what I will say, if I had a piece of advice about storytelling, is I'm always listening to even like mainstream books or movies or whatever. And if I'm like having to do a lot of work to understand what's happening and what characters or what, and I just like, I really don't like that. And so like the best stories are the ones that don't ask you to like do a lot of like, you don't need like a notebook keeping track of what character is what, you know what I mean? Like, and so, I like to, I always do less. I try to do less with my comics. Like if I can do the least possible, that's what I want to do, because if it's less story but it's more satisfying, that's the sweet spot for me.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Less is definitely more in a lot of ways, I think. And honestly, especially with, I think, reality being what is in today's environment, and, all these kind of heavy things. And like, we were doing a live show the other day for the channel here, and we were talking about, comic book movies and such. And we are kind of talking about how, man, like, it's been popular the last couple of years to do big dramas and stuff again, rom-coms and things like that, kind of stopped in the early 2000s for some reason. And it's like, when did people like say we don't want to have fun anymore? You know what I mean? Like, when did the escape from reality part leave the element, I guess, of entertainment to some extent? So I think it speaks to just how, people, I guess, kind of forgot, like, hey, you can escape this and it's okay. It's a safe place to do it. So I just love that your comics allow that in so many great ways.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so rewards with this, one thing I appreciate about your Kickstarters too, I love, there are some Kickstarters that do a ton of rewards, which can be really, really fun. And I do enjoy those as well. But one thing I like about you guys is that you keep your rewards usually kind of simple, almost. Not too simple though, but you cater to exactly, okay, what do people want? And for those of you guys that don't know, they're watching this later, Caleb does have a newsletter that I'm also on, and he'll often email, asking for input. And if you do a survey, you get like a little extra goodie in the Kickstarters. It's a really great thing. But yeah, I just think it's so cool. You got like good variant covers and things like that. A couple stickers. What's your thought process with making the rewards, especially since you do so many Kickstarters?
Right. So first of all, like you said, I do so many Kickstarters, and that means every Kickstarter that I do, I have to fulfill. I'm not a big enough fish that I can pay someone else to do it for me. So I honestly, one of the first things I think about is how much of a pain is it going to be to fulfill these rewards? And the simpler I keep it, the easier it'll be for me. Because I'll have a system, especially with the more complex ones, like when I did Unicorn Vampire Hunter issues 4 and 5 last year, where I had like all 5 issues and the variants for all the issues and like a bunch of other stickers and everything. I had to have like my whole dining room table was like set up with like stations of like, here's all the different things. And I was like going through the orders, like, like assembling packages and like doing that for days and days and days. Now, that's like one thing, but also the most important thing to me is like how easy it is it for someone coming to this page to like figure out what's on offer and what they might want. And like, if they're like, oh, I like this, how can I get it? I want it to be super easy to figure that out. And so one thing that I do now, I love that Kickstarter added add-on functionality, and I use backer kit surveys. So there's sort of tiers to complexity. The reward tiers, very simple. I'm like, usually I try to keep it to like 4 or 5 tiers. And then there's some add-ons, but I usually don't go crazy with the add-ons in Kickstarter. And then when they get the backer kit, you can usually then add on a lot more stuff. But I just want to make the process easy and simple to understand, and I don't want to do too much. I find that in the past, sometimes I've offered like a lot of variants, and what I find is that there will always be like one or two that just like don't sell that much. And while that's okay, it's also like more, it's like I said, less is more sometimes. And if you offer too many things, then it's like, well, it just becomes confusing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's a sort of long-winded answer, but also, like you said, I'm really glad that you mentioned this, because the newsletter I just straight up ask people what they want. And honestly, when I first started doing that, I was like, is it going to be easy for people to say what they want and then not actually follow through and like buy it? And that is sometimes true. I mean, definitely if I say, okay, should I offer this really high value, expensive reward? More people are going to say yes than actually buy it. But I've also found that like it's still worth it to offer those things. Like, I'm sure later we'll talk about Unicorn Vampire Hunter, but I'm offering like a really like a prestige cover that's like $95, and it's like really expensive to make. And I asked my Kickstarter, I mean my email newsletter, not only should I offer this, but exactly what features should be on it. And then I just did that. I went with the features that were the most popular, and that version of the book on that Kickstarter has been extremely popular. So, I mean, I think basically what I'm saying is it pays to listen to people if they say what they want. Like, it's like, yeah.
Yeah, crazy concept, right? Ask what people want and just give it to them, and most of them will still get it. Wow, what a way to run a business, guys. Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree. It makes a lot of sense to me. And I think too, especially if you're somebody that does a lot of Kickstarters, I think, like you said, ask people what they want and, finding ways to offer it, right, at reasonable and helpful value and things like that. But also keeping things simpler is more helpful, and you're more likely to retain backers, because that's a whole thing too, right? Is how do I keep my backers for each project, even if they're different? But keeping things simple and understandable each time, you're more likely to keep backers. Whereas, if you start making things complicated on a Kickstarter or something, somebody that backed one Kickstarter before may say, I like this creator and I like this book, but this is too much now. I got to pass.
And I will say that probably one of the most difficult things about retaining an audience is having different projects, because like you said, I do a lot of different books, but I also definitely notice, and I think that it's, when people come to me as like new fans, they usually get attached to one thing. I hear a lot of people know me from Unicorn Vampire Hunter, and those are always my most successful campaigns. But I also hear from a lot of people that they found me through Vampire Detective in Space, and then they're like, that's what they want to see. And then so when I do something different, there's no guarantee. I mean, there's no guarantee ever when I launch a new campaign that anyone will come back. But there's also like, there's definitely an attrition rate of new projects where it's like, this is something new, it's something different. And I definitely don't think I'm at the point as a writer where I have a big following purely because of me as an author. It's more about the titles that I do, which is totally understandable. I mean, I hope someday that I'm something like a Cullen Bunn or something, where people just like want my books just because, it's a Caleb Palmquist book, but I'm certainly not there yet. So yeah, like you said, I try to remove barriers. Like if you're taking a chance on me, I want it to be easy to take a chance on me.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I know you by name very well, even if I don't have every project of yours yet. There's a reason I'm on your newsletter, things like that. And I think,
well, thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that, that's how you build it, is just even a few people that are really into it. And they say, especially people that, they don't, because I'm not even the kind of person that likes to just follow, publishers or just names anymore. Like Cullen Bunn. God, if you love Cullen Bunn, and he is fantastic, But if you follow everything he does, good luck, because he puts out like 4 to 6 books a month.
That's true. That maybe was an example of someone that like no one can afford to follow everything that he does.
But people do. That's the thing. People do, which is wonderful. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And it's like, in my end, I'm like, man, when creators do get that big, which is wonderful, and they're putting out so much, I can't follow everything from a creator at that point anymore, me personally. And I'm still going to be excited when the project comes out for them. And so be like, you know what, when I get to it, I'll get to it, because I want to support them. And I think that's what it's all about. But you talked about Unicorn Vampire Hunter, which you got volume 1 on Kickstarter now. It has surpassed its goal, which hopefully means we got some stretch goals coming up, all this great stuff. You highlighted the cover, the version of the book that is really nice. I'm trying to find it here because you've got a hardback. You've got a hardback collector's edition. I mean, this is huge, man.
Thank you. We do have stretch goals, and I can talk about them in a second. But yeah, this right here that you have on the screen is the collector's edition. This is the version that essentially was built with the help of my newsletter email list that they responded to, and it's like just the fanciest possible comic book you could imagine. It's got all the features: cloth bound, engraved cover, gilded page edges. When Dave first started working with me on Unicorn Vampire Hunter, he said to me, if this book ever gets collected into a hardback, it has to have gilded page edges. And he made me promise him that we would do gilded page edges. So this is me fulfilling my promise to Dave.
Well, at least the email list agreed. Otherwise, Dave, I feel like, would have been very, very sad and a little heartbroken.
Well, it turns out people love gilded page edges, so I'm super excited about it. It's like it's really ridiculously fancy. I mean, it's almost too fancy. But I think that's a beautiful thing about Kickstarter, is that you can do too fancy things. If the support is there, and you don't have to. Like, I don't have to have 10,000 people who will buy this in order to justify making it.
That's true.
So I think maybe 60 people have ordered it so far, and that's plenty. I can go and produce it now. But yeah, we've got a few different versions of the book, and it's just collecting the first 5 issues, which is the whole first story arc, and that's the story that I set out to tell a long time ago. Was the first 5 issues. Now, of course, the story will continue. Anyone who's read the book up through issue 5 will know that it's not the end. And so really on this Kickstarter, you choose a book, and then you can choose some add-ons. Really the main add-ons we have are this electric metal metallic print. It's not a metal print, it's a metallic stock, but it's illustrated by David Brame, and it's this like kind of trippy rendition of the scene from issue 2 where Edward the Unicorn gets into a fight in the forest and there's some electricity involved. Then we have this unicorn sticker. Camry Lapka did this great sticker, and Camry is another good friend of mine who's a great artist, who does a lot of little things for me, and we'll talk more about her later, I'm sure. But my stickers are one of my favorite things on campaigns. I always offer these die-cut stickers. They're like my favorite reward. And that's really it. Everything else that's an add-on is kind of like, you can get some of my old stuff on this campaign, but like you said, keeping it simple.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I wanted to ask you about as well is you started this new monthly subscription service essentially called the Dragon Kettle. And it really seems to, kind of help and reward people that, want to support a bunch of your Kickstarter campaigns, but, doing that a lot can add up. And so it's like, hey, if you're going to do that, awesome. Here you go.
Yeah. So basically, I wanted to offer a program to give people primarily a discount on shipping on every campaign. But they also get, so it costs $25 a year, and then you get $5 off shipping on every campaign. So, and I launch like 7 to 10 Kickstarters a year. So, if you're following a lot of my stuff, you'll definitely like save money by by subscribing to this. And then you also get a special like reward with every Kickstarter you back, like a sticker or a bookmark or something that is Dragon Kettle themed. And then I'm also doing a monthly additional newsletter that's got an exclusive 30-minute podcast, behind the scenes podcast, and it also has a comic strip that is like a Cheers style comic strip about a pub called the Dragon Kettle, which is operated and visited by dragons. And that's drawn by Camry Lapka. And so that's just like a fun little bonus thing that you get every month if you are subscribed to the Dragon Kettle. And hopefully it's definitely not something that I'm doing to line my pockets, because like I said, it's $25 a year, but if you backed 5 Kickstarters, then you're saving money because you get $5 off of shipping on every campaign, plus you get in this bonus stuff. So I haven't reached the point with it yet where I'm like even making enough money to pay Camry for all the art that she's doing, but that's totally fine, because it's just like another fun thing that I'm doing, and hopefully it's something that makes it feel like people who are big supporters of mine feel like they're getting something extra and are part of the process, which is really my goal. So yeah,
that makes a ton of sense. I think it's a great idea. If you guys, love Caleb's work as much as I do, you should definitely check this out. Again, $25 a year, and you save on shipping, and you can kind of see how shipping works too. Like, I mean, at that point, you're like, $1 for one book if you're in the US. Like that's freaking phenomenal. And especially if you're an international backer, you might as well, because international shipping is garbage.
Yeah, I will say too, this isn't written on the Kickstarter, but if you're an international backer and you're like, I want to back Caleb's books and I'm having trouble justifying the cost, I've definitely worked out deals with backers where they'll back several campaigns and I'll just hold their books and then send them all at once. And that way they're able to save a lot of money on shipping. But that's something that is like, it would be very difficult to formalize that process. Yeah, if you're listening and you live in France or, South Africa or something, and you want to back multiple campaigns of mine, feel free to reach out. I mean, that's another beautiful thing about Kickstarter. It's just a direct line of communication. So yeah,
100%. And, with this campaign, obviously it's going really well. What stretch goals do you have and that you can speak to?
Yeah, so we already hit our $15,000 stretch goal, which was to lately I've been, especially as stretch goals and extra bonus things, I've been like recording little podcast episodes or audio commentaries. And I've been kind of on that kick because I started a podcast a few months ago with my friend Alan. But the this particular audio clip will be of me talking about the future of Unicorn Vampire Hunter and what's coming, and really a behind the scenes look of like what's coming volume 2 and 3 and the process of that. So and some other things that are coming out. So I'm super excited about that. And then we have an $18,000 stretch goal, which is where actually everyone who backs this book at a physical level is going to get a physical copy of Unicorn Vampire Hunter #1 from the first printing.
Wow, that's
included
awesome.
With their reward. Yeah. So I had a lot of #1, but I'm getting close to running out, and I thought that I should, of that first printing, it would be a cool bonus for these people to get that if they don't have it already. And if you already do have a physical copy of #1, you can give it to a friend or something like that. And then the last stretch goal I currently have planned is $20,000. And if we reach, it's early here.
It's okay. It's early for you. Don't stress.
If we reach $20,000, I'm going to have a stretch goal that is a trading card. So on a lot of my campaigns, I do trading cards, and I did not do one for this one. But we have one planned for a stretch goal. if we hit 20K, every physical backer will just get this for free, and it's going to be a card that's drawn by Dave Swartz, who is the artist of Vampire Detective in Space.
Yes. A lot of Daves. You got a lot of good Daves in your life, Caleb. How'd you find them all?
Well, so yeah, those are all the currently planned stretch goals.
I am super pumped. You're $1 away from breaking 17K, so I feel like 20K is very realistic. I think it's very possible, especially with 12 days to go of this recording. I'm just super excited for you. This book is gonna be gorgeous. If you guys have read the series, you guys already know it's gorgeous. But there's something about a collected edition that you just can't beat with a work you love, you know?
Oh yeah, and I also wanted to be able to offer, I know everybody has their preferred format for reading comics, and I think it's fairly undeniable in terms of the business side of things that single issues are an easier way to make the funding for, to make it possible to make these things. And I know some people really like single issues, but then I wanted to be able to come back and offer the collected edition. And because I know that a lot of people who have followed me have already gotten the individual issues, I made sure to let my mailing list and people on the Kickstarter know that the little bit of extra content that is in this book will be available as like a separate Ashcan comic after the campaign. So if you didn't want to, pay $40 or whatever for this, just for a little bit of extra content, that will be available to you on the backer kit pre-order page as an Ashcan comic, because I didn't want anyone to feel like I was like trying to manipulate them into paying $40 for an extra few pages of content. Yeah,
that makes a ton of sense. And I think that's really great because, even I don't think it's always done with malice or anything by measure, but that is, something publishers and people do to create value and rarity. And it can be frustrating for collectors that, want to support the work, but, money's involved or, they have feelings about. So I think it's awesome that you're so considerate of that because you definitely don't have to be, but it's appreciated that you are.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Those of you guys watching at home, Space Monkey Knights Go #1 and Unicorn Vampire Hunter Volume 1, they are live on Kickstarter now. I'll make sure all those links are below so that you guys can just click like 6 times and, get like a bunch of books. You won't regret it. Just even if you close your eyes and play like Russian roulette, you'll get something really fun. Caleb, thank you so much for coming on. Please plug yourself away. Where can people find you? All that good stuff.
Sure. Well, I always say that people can find me on social media, but I often forget that social media exists. And so I would love it if you followed me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, but I cannot guarantee that I'll notice that you did because I might not log into Twitter. But the best way to follow me is what you said earlier is my newsletter. And the way to follow that is to go to unicornvampirehunter.com or calebpalmquist.com. Goes to the same place. And right at the top of the homepage, there's a link to join my mailing list. And like you said, not only do I update it very frequently with news about what's coming out, but I also give away a ton of free stuff. And I ask the newsletter for their input so you could have some influence on what I'm putting out, get some free stickers, some free bookmarks, stuff like that. And yeah, that if you're on the newsletter, you will not miss new books that I have coming out and new things that I'm doing.
Awesome. Yeah, and those of you guys worry about your email inbox, he doesn't spam. Don't worry about it. Anything he sends, I promise you're going to want to read it. I read every single newsletter. It doesn't get deleted until after I read it, and I'm done with it. So that's because I delete emails.
Sure.
General.
No, that makes
I upkeep my inbox, unlike some people that have like 1,000 emails unread.
I did. So you're gonna hate me because my current unread is 45,000.
Oh my god! How do you sleep, man? How?
I don't know. It's been going on for so many years at this point that I'm just like, this is my life. This is what I do. I think I'm pretty good at making sure that I respond and open to the important emails. But most of those unread emails are like, like whatever, Best Buy or like Bed Bath and Beyond or whatever. And like, so yeah, I should be better about it, but that is not my area of expertise at all. But yeah, thank you about the emails. I do try to make sure that the emails are valuable, and I do try to make sure that I'm not always selling something. That a lot of times I'm just like talking about stuff and what's coming out and whatever. So
yeah, no, you make it worth it every time. So I appreciate you, Caleb. I think you're awesome. Thank you again for coming on. I know it's super early for you, so sorry about that. We're gonna have to work on time zones one day.
I'm gonna go get some coffee now. So
yes, absolutely. Well, thanks again to all you watching this later at home as well. Be sure to click all the links below, get on his newsletter, back the campaigns, all the great stuff. And if you like what you see here on the channel, like, share, and subscribe. All that super cheesy but important stuff helps us grow so that we can help people like Caleb grow, because that's what we're all about here. And otherwise, we'll see you guys next time in the nerdy neighborhood.